Well, we're now in our third week of Advent, and we're hearing about John the Baptist again, because last week you would have heard about John the Baptist. I guess you did. You would have heard a sermon about John the Baptist last week. And so this week again we get John, and it's the third week of Advent. Shouldn't we be talking about the cute baby by now? Or at least an angel or Mary or something, right? Well, what you expect isn't always what you get, right? John is dealing with that today. He's in prison. He sends one of his followers to Jesus and asks this very pointed question: are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another? Seems like he's having some doubts here. Last week he was loud and strong in the wilderness, shouting about the certainty that Jesus was the Messiah that was foretold. But now he's not so sure. We get to see a little more human side to John, and I don't think we can really blame him if he was having some doubts, because he was expecting a Messiah in the tradition of a king like King David, a warrior, a ruler who's going to raise up an army and destroy Rome. A king that will come and bring peace and rule over the land with an iron fist. And instead he ends up with Jesus. A man not interested in earthly power, instead a servant. Someone who heals the undesirables, and instead of judgment and casting out of people, the sinners, in quotes, Jesus restores them and saves them and shows them compassion. So in this sense, I think I can see why John might be a little confused. Because he's in jail, which is not a pleasant place to be. I've never been imprisoned, but I've been to prison and worked with prisoners. It's not an ideal place to be. John is trapped and alone, suffering, probably worrying about being executed, which we know he will be. Maybe he's wondering if he made a big mistake because he was trying to preach and prepare the way for the Messiah, but it was the Messiah that he imagined. But as it is true with many things, right? What he expected was not what he got. So, if John is expressing doubt here, Jesus responds to him, but not in the way that John maybe would have liked, I imagine. Because John is asking the wrong question. He asked Jesus if he is the Messiah that everyone had been waiting for. Jesus never says he's the Messiah anyway, which is another story. But he doesn't write John off here. He says, look, John, the blind see, the lepers are healed, and this is the work that I've been sent to do. Is that what you expected or not? I don't know. It might not be what you expected, but I'm still doing the work of God. So, John, you can tell me, am I the Messiah that you wanted, right? But Jesus doesn't give up on John because he had doubts. Instead, Jesus continues to hold John up. He points John out as an exemplary disciple. Because John wasn't what people expected to see either, right? When they went out into the woods, what did they expect to see? Soft robes? But no one born of a woman has arisen greater than he. So something that I always try to emphasize in sermons is that doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is essential to faith. And I'll say it again so that we get it. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. It is an essential part of faith, which kind of seems counterintuitive. We tend to get this idea that we have to be sure of our beliefs all the time and steadfast, and then that is faith. But if we're always so sure of everything, then there's no room to grow. If we are certain all the time, we would never read a new article or study the Bible or have debates with people or meet people of other faiths and have a relationship and a dialogue with them. If we never doubt, we wouldn't grow. and we wouldn't grow in our faith, right? So we need to have some doubts in our faith, and we need to ask questions and stretch our imaginations. And I think this might be what Jesus is asking us to do today. Think outside of this narrow idea of a Messiah. And it is possible that the Messiah might not be what we expected. And that's true with everything, right? Everything in life. Especially this time of year, we have a lot of expectations. We're surrounded by upbeat music, starting way too early, in my opinion. And we have lights, and we have presents, and we anticipate the joyous arrival of Jesus, or not. Some people like Christmas but don't do the Jesus part. That's okay too. But we're supposed to be happy all the time, right? Everything is supposed to be perfect. If you watch the news and you see a story of a crime, it's always prefaced with something like, "This awful thing happened today, and so close to the holidays, oh, how terrible." So, well, it is pretty terrible all the time. I don't think we have to qualify it that it's near the holidays. It's just that we expect things to be different at Christmas than every other day. Because Christmas promises peace on earth and goodwill, and we want it to be that way. But it's tough to live up to that in a world that's filled with humans, because we have flaws. So we can get disappointed, and we can get disappointed with God, and we can be doubtful, and that is totally okay. It's okay to feel let down by God and be mad at God. Just read through the Psalms. We have to live our lives with our dreams and hopes, but also things that disappoint us. But the promise that we get is that we might feel let down and disappointed, but God doesn't get that way with us. God doesn't get disappointed and give up. God joins us in our weaknesses and holds us in our insecurities and comforts us when we're afraid, and also celebrates in joy. And God came in Jesus not for the strong and proud necessarily, but for the weak and the vulnerable. What weaker form could God take than a newborn baby, right? God came in Jesus for us to shine a light into the darkness of the world. Now, John the Baptist dies before Jesus dies in the story. So he didn't get to see the miracle of Easter, right, and the resurrection. So it's possible that John died thinking he'd made a terrible mistake. We don't know. I can't put words in his mouth necessarily. I like to think that Jesus' answer to John here helped restore his faith a little bit. Because John wanted a strong leader, someone who would fight. And instead he got a Messiah who told us to turn the other cheek. And he ate with tax collectors and prostitutes. And he got a Messiah who was a human, one who took on our own lot in life and lived as we live, so that we can know of God's promise to be with us, to be really with us in our lives forever. So next week, I promise we get to hear about Mary and the baby and the census and all that stuff. Don't worry. But until then, we should continue our Advent ponderings. Ponder all the joys and disappointments that we have in life and in God. Because even the greatest person born of a woman on earth, John the Baptist, had some doubts. And that's okay. And when we doubt God's presence in the world, always try to remember what this season is really about. And that God is there, even if it's hard to see sometimes. That's the promise of Christmas. God is with us and for us all the time. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.